All right. So, okay, I want to talk to you about the case of Kelly Thomas. Because this is an existing example. Is that in the sense that when we are living in a state of tyranny, it's instructive for us to see an example of that so that we have a taste of what is coming. And I've loaded the video up on our website at americasvoicenow.org. I've loaded it up on our Facebook page at facebook.com/americasvoicenow. I'll put it in the comments section or the subject section in our YouTube channel, and I've put it up on our patriotfb.com page. This is disturbing because it shows two police officers who approach a guy who's homeless. Apparently, and you can see in the video, the guy's wearing no shirt. He's got a knapsack on. He's got long, scraggly hair. He looks awful. He's dirty and unkempt. But they're questioning him. And what it looks like as it unfolds, the first 14 minutes or so is these officers, basically talking to him and toying with him. And as time goes on in that 14 minutes, you see the police officers, and this one police officer specifically, his name is Manny Ramos, who is a murderer, who will, if there is any justice in the universe, will spend the remainder of his natural life, hopefully as short as that may be, and the remainder of eternity in utter and sheer horror and torment. I don't think there is enough punishment for a piece of human trash like Manny Ramos and the other cop. The cop keeps telling him, put your feet out and put your hands behind your back. And the premise, of course, this is after they've forced him to sit on the curb. And the guy is complicit and compliant. And then finally the cop walks up to him and he says to him, put your hands on your knees and put your feet out. And then he looks at this guy and he's standing over him, and it reminds me of a cat that has, a mouse. You've seen this in your own yard. And this cat has the mouse. And it picks it up and it throws it up in the air, and the mouse lands on the ground and tries to scramble away. And the cat, with one or two steps, reaches over and paws him, holds him down on the ground with a paw, and then lets him up so he can run away a little bit and they can toy with him. And the mouse and the mouse is terrified and frightened, and you can see his sides heaving while the cat continues to play. And then finally, the cat grows tired of the game and has his meal. And you can see this in play in a human caricature as this cop, Manny Ramos, steps up. And he's putting rubber gloves on, and he says to this guy, now you see my fists? And you can clearly hear this in the video. Yeah, what about them, says Thomas. They're getting ready to F you up, says Ramos. Now, as he's putting on a pair of gloves, if a man had you sitting on the ground, for all intents and purposes, the kid is not armed. They already know that. He's 160 pounds, and Ramos looks like he at least weighs 250. And when anyone who's ever been in a fight, a physical confrontation, and any woman who's listening now, if you were sitting there and you were, for all intents and purposes, knowing that you were under authority and that this individual was literally terrorizing you at this point, and that person says to you, you see these fists? Well, they're getting ready to blank you up. The alarm flags are going off in your head. Your adrenaline is surging because you know this is that moment. You know that go is reaching go. And this guy says, well, start punching. And he never once displayed any kind of aggressive response. Never once did he even put his hands up to defend himself. And the cop tells him to get on his knees, and he doesn't say get on your knees. It's laced with language. And the guy stands up, and the cop pulls out his billy club. And the minute this guy sees that club, he knows what's coming. And he attempts to get away. Now, you have to recognize this has been going on for 15 minutes now. And maybe even sooner than that, longer than that, because this is a city surveillance camera that caught the entire thing, and you can hear the language. You can hear the words spoken. But then it gets worse. These cops break after this guy and get him just on the other side of the car, 15, 20 feet away, and they hammer him to the ground. And they're telling him to lay still. As you can see, this cop has his arm bent up behind his back, and he's jamming this guy's arm up so hard the guy's screaming in agony. They keep telling him, put his hands behind his back, and he says, I can't. The guy is begging them, I'm sorry. He's telling them, I can't breathe. They're sitting on him. More cops run up. 6 men. And at one point, you can hear the tasers going off, and the guy is screaming in agony. And then you see an officer raise his hand, and he starts banging down with something. And you can't tell whether he later said it was the handle of the taser. I don't believe that. It looked like a flashlight or something. You can even hear the cop later on say, I beat his face in with the taser. And when you look at this man who never awoke, but spent a week in the hospital and died, folks, look at the picture of this man and look at his face. Look at his physical condition and tell me anything he could have done warranted that level of treatment. Are you telling me that 6 burly cops with body armor and physical mace and tasers could not control this man? All the time they're saying, he's on something. He wasn't on anything. He was fighting valiantly for his life. When your life is in danger, have you ever seen a dog or a cat or any animal for that matter that has been cornered and realizes this is my last stand? That animal will fight viciously and savagely, irrespective of how mild and moderate their temperament may be, when they recognize that their life is about to end. It took these cops 14 minutes to kill this man. He was tortured and he was murdered by thugs in blue. The toxicology reports later came out and said he had no drugs and no alcohol in his system. He was merely fighting for his life. You'll hear the guy begging, telling them repeatedly, I can't breathe, crying for his father. as he lay dying. You hear one of the police officers at one point say, "He's falling asleep." He wasn't falling asleep. He was dying. They taunted him like a cat with a mouse under his paw. To make things worse, ladies and gentlemen, it is now institutionalized into our system that police cannot be found guilty of murder. These two individuals, the two police involved, were fired. And they were charged with murder. And the jury found them not guilty after watching the same video I'm asking you to watch. The judge made the statement that, among other lessons we've learned in this trial, violence begets violence. I don't see violent actions on the part of Kelly Thomas. I don't see him fighting back. I merely see him trying to defend himself. Their police union lawyer represented these guys, and here's what he has to say. These peace officers did their jobs. They did what they were trained to do. And that individual has no idea how damning that statement is. Because he's right. They did exactly as they've been trained to do. They are doing exactly as they are trained to do in every instance of police brutality. In every instance where you see the militarization of law enforcement, it was unprovoked. It is completely and utterly unjustified, and it was murder. The Fullerton Police Department fired these two guys, and the state saw enough evidence that they felt it was appropriate to charge them criminally with murder. A jury acquitted them. Right after the acquittal, one of the cops actually went back and started to cry out that he wants his job back. He will likely be rehired. In a summation to the jury, one of the attorneys who represented this cop, Cincinnati, he stated that the unremitting assault on Thomas was carried out in strict fidelity to the training that officers had received. He says, the officer has the right to pursue the suspect until the suspect is controlled. That's how my client was trained. This explains Cincinnati's use of a taser, first as a taser and secondly as a club. And it justifies his own words, in which he said, on tape, I smashed his face to hell. Ladies and gentlemen, a clearer case of police brutality and abuse suffered at the hands of a tyrannical, fascist police state does not exist. And yet, this will be, and I promise you this will be, used as precedent in future cases in which law enforcement will continue this raping and pillaging of America. the citizens that they are allegedly sworn to protect and serve. When you watch this, I got to tell you, put yourself in the place of a jury. You know, one of their defenders actually sat there and says, listen to them during the fight. You don't think they thought they were in the fight of their lives? Do you think that they called a bunch of cops there to come watch them and help them beat down a homeless person? Do you think that's what happened? Well, I'm asking you to watch it, and you tell me what you think. Ladies and gentlemen, the citizens of Fullerton deserve better. The truth of the matter is, we deserve better from our law enforcement than terror. I've reiterated numerous cases of abuse and terrorism at the hands of law enforcement in this show. And I don't want to throw every police officer and every sheriff's deputy and every law enforcement agent under the bus here. There are those who do their job in a true constitutional fashion. But the institutions themselves have now left the realm of constitutional law. They have left the realm of the principles of protect and serve. And they have entered the realm of tyrannical terrorism by... And you know, when you talk to police, they'll defend it and say, look, there's bad cops, but, you know, the vast majority are... I got to tell you, I'm not so sure that that's the case anymore. I'm not sure it's the vast majority who are actually good and there's a few bad ones, or if it's the vast majority that are bad and there's only a few good ones. When I look at an organization like the TSA, when I look at an organization like the ATF, when I look at an organization that, like these cops who are defended and protected, I got to tell you, folks, it tells me that when push comes to shove, we can't expect these people to protect and serve us. It tells me that we no longer have the ability to realistically expect that law enforcement will protect us, because we almost at this point need more protection from them than we do from the remainder of whatever threats are out there. The family of this young man, Kelly Thomas, I got to tell you, to watch these two men walk off out of a courtroom, if I had watched that as a father, and I watched them do that to my son, and then I heard a jury give them not freedom, but accolades and acclaim for that behavior. There would be no place safe on the planet Earth if that was my boy and I heard him begging, "Daddy, please help me." I watched that video this morning and I couldn't stop the tears from running down my face. Because I have sons. And I placed myself in the position of that young fella's father. And there would be no justification for their actions. This is so far beyond the scope of anything that anyone can justify. I don't know how they picked this jury. I don't know who they paid to come in and defend these men. I don't know how they accomplished what they accomplished. But I can tell you that for these two to get off means that there is not a single shred of justice in the world, in the United States at least, that are, I heard that the Department of Justice is going to look into this and determine whether or not they should charge these people separately under federal crime. And if they don't, I won't be surprised. But I've got to tell you, this was a crime of unimaginable terror. When you watch the 15 minutes it took for these men to murder that young fella, and there's no justice. I don't care what he did. I don't care what they think he did. I don't care whether he smelled. I don't care whether he was dirty. When you see the picture of his face as he lay in that hospital bed dying, and you see the damage they did to him, I'm without words. I'm without words. He's pleading for his life. And they murdered him. I don't know how you move on from here. I don't know how this father can wake up every day and go on knowing what happened to his son. It's so painful to watch that video and to recognize what we have descended to. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to judge for yourselves. I want you to use the principles of natural law, the idea that you have freedom and liberty as a base foundational human attribute. And then I want you to tell me after watching that if there's anything that justifies their actions. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. You can find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org.